So I was observing within what are the things that, especially when I am in a social setting, are kind of holding me back from being me authentically as much as possible. and I and I really started to observe and acknowledge that there were so many layers. Um, I I realized that um, it can be fear of moving in a certain way, for example, or entering in a room where there are so many people. There are times where I can see that really there is like a revulsion. It really feels like all of me doesn't want to do that. And as a sensitive person, I know that often it's very good for me to trust those feelings and know that it's also an indication for me that a room is not mine, it's not what is really inviting me in energetically, for example. So this often is a blessing for me to be able to intuitively understand immediately what is going to serve me and what I actually want. Um, but at the times, it's just really fear of showing up, plain and simple. Like, it can be anything. Sometimes, like, I notice something that happens to me a lot is I love going to restaurants and cafes alone. I find it, I don't know, I find it recharging somehow. Of course, depending by the setting and the environment. But if it's a, a pleasant atmosphere, an environment that serves me, I feel held and supported, and I feel well in being alone with the book or writing often, um, but also just looking out of the window, or if it's an open space, looking at nature around me or whatever is available in that moment, setting, and situation. But so in my bubble, all is fine. It's the moment where the interaction has to happen again that can be very challenging for me. For example, I notice that if I'm eating something out, and then it's very hard for me to smile. I know it can sound weird, but because I have this perception that so much could be in my teeth. I don't know, today I had a very nice um, Japanese meal at a vegan restaurant, and there were all these crushed nori seaweeds with the sesame seeds. And my mind was just like, okay, now I can't smile anymore because probably there are seaweeds all over my teeth. And I had this moment where there was a person who was actively um, looking at me and smiling from the other side of the road, and I just could smile in this way because the self-conscious, like feeling so self-conscious that something might be in my teeth, that I just smiled with covering my teeth. And yeah, it just brings me back to like being a teenager observing these things. Like there are certain things that we carry from those formative years that are still somehow a little bit hard to let go of. Um, but I feel that what is important here is, first of all, when we start noticing this, to be kind and not slip into this easy narrative of, oh, so silly. Uh, I remember often I heard myself saying I'm such a geek. um, which, yeah, but at the same time, we should always be kind to ourselves, even when we are joking, and know that we are doing the best that we can, and that in the moment we start noticing these things, we are already halfway and we can change it. And it's a process, really, to remind ourselves that we are here to learn. Um, when I was when I was a child, I remember that I was often in the first front row in the classroom sitting, and I I honestly don't remember which grade, but I guess I was pretty young, like it wasn't even middle school. I remember that I started having this, mm, I don't know, maybe a reaction uh, of feeling that people were behind me and that maybe they were looking at me or looking at the a blackboard in front of me, but um, my neck and shoulders, they would get super tense, like literally like so tense that it was like um micro movement of holding, like when we hold muscles like very tight. Yeah, not to show my but when we make them very tight, and then there is still like some kind of maybe a flinch, and that was what I started having, and it lasted many years, just this sensation of sometimes I would get self-aware and like a turtle, just like, oh gosh, people are behind me. And I I know that this it's a good reminder for me to know to remember that somehow uh, social settings have always been challenging for me, but I don't have necessarily to avoid being in a social setting all the time. Um, if if this means not being my authentic self, if this means uh, putting myself in the cage that I've been trying to run away from. So sometimes it can be anything, like feeling that our voice is quite weird. That for me, for example, is I notice that when I'm interacting with a new person, I have a kind of mm, it's a more it's a higher pitch in my voice, like hi, hello. It's not like this, but hi, hello. Wow, this is more my normal voice where I am in my being and I'm confident and comfortable. Then I can just have this more, yeah, neutral tone, I suppose. And it's easy for me to judge myself for that, like to uh, judge, oh, my voice again, it came out in this way, or yeah, that person was just smiling at me, why couldn't I smile back? Or yeah, that's true, there were so many people, but still I wanted to go to see the photograph or something, and I didn't go just because. Yeah, you, we should use those moments as a foundation to understand where still we are redirecting ourselves, but not as an act of self punishment and judgment, because then it's not actually helping anyone. I think many of us are experiencing at times some sort of social anxiety, and the first step is, please don't take it as a failure. Don't take it as being not normal or too different, or that um yeah, just feeling like something it's wrong, because it isn't. It's just that it can be upsetting and challenging to be around others, but there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with you. You are deserving and powerful and strong and brave and courageous, just as you are, and you do deserve to enter each room, each of them, every single one of them, no matter who is in it. Always, you are always, always, always invited, and you're doing awesome. And please, whenever you caught yourself into trying to go back into your shell or dimming your light a little bit, great, it happened. Nothing wrong with that. It will happen again. And maybe again, and maybe again. Sometimes it takes 10, 20, 50, 100 more times, but each one is still serving. Trust me on that. You're doing awesome.